I've been lucky enough to get my hands on one of Magene's latest and greatest PES 515 power meters, and I'm here to put it to the test and tell you all, is it actually something worth spending your own hard-earned cash on? Now, obligatory disclaimer before we get started, I did ask for this power meter of Magene and they have sent it me for free to make a review for you guys. However, I've not committed to saying anything specific about the product and I'm just going to give you my honest opinions. On to the basic specs then. This Magene PES 515 is a spider-based power meter, and in this configuration it comes with one of Magene's PES cranksets, which is a pretty standard 24mm aluminium crankset. Not particularly the lightest in the world. That's what their TEO is for. Now, they claim the 515 has a plus or minus 1% accuracy, a battery life of 330 hours, Bluetooth and ANT plus connectivity. The exact model I've got here is with 170mm crank arms and in a 4-bolt Shimano style chainring pattern. To break the illusion a little bit, I've actually already got it on the bike that I'm riding on the turbo right now. But for you guys, you're about to watch me install it and also get it on the scales. So cracking open the box then, inside we've got a few manuals. Obviously we've got the power meter itself, and we've also got the PES crankset, which is a very standard aluminium crankset with their own mounting interface on the back. Now, if you want something a little bit lighter, they do also make the TEO crankset that they've just released, which is incredibly light. And hopefully I'll be able to check out one of them soon as well. And one thing I like compared to the Quark I have been using, it does use a rechargeable battery, unlike my Quark's coin cell battery. In terms of the bike it'll be going on, it's going on my Ribble, which I've just set up with L2 ERX. Currently running a Dura Ace 5034 chain set, which will be coming off in favour of the Magene. However, one of the best parts about that Magene and the configuration I've got, it has a 4-bolt spider set up to be plug and play with your old Shimano chain rings, which is absolutely perfect for my use case. So yeah, let's get the Magene set up and the Dura Ace crank off the bike. Oh, and I nearly forgot, in the accessories box, you do get the little proprietary charging cable to USB-A. I would have liked to see a Type-C, but USB-A will do fine. And you can see it just magnets on to the Magene like that. They do also tell you on a little warning sticker, you've got to plug it in and charge it first, which will wake the device up initially. Then we've got 2 little extra bags, mounting hardware, so the preload bolt and 4 chainring bolts, some extra decals for the power meter, and yeah, some little rubber washers. So first things first, using the little keyed interface, you slide the power meter on, and then using the included lock ring tool, you tighten the lock ring onto it, and then using my BB tool, that's not going to work. Something to watch out for, if you have a BB tool like this that doesn't like slot over the axle, it's not going to work, is it? So you've got to use sort of a handle-based one like this, and it says this needs to be torqued to 35 to 40 Newton meters. So, well, I can't use it with my torque wrench, but that is just generally pretty tight. You do not want that coming loose. Anyway, got that on. So torquing weights, the drive side, 422 grams, and the non-drive side takes up to 618.8, obviously without chain rings. If you add in the preload bolt and then the 4 chain ring bolt, 653.4 grams. So it is definitely not a lightweight option, but that's not what it's really intended to be for. Now, I guess it's time to get the Dura Ace crank off the bike and get it all set up. Dura Ace crank off. Now we need to get the chain ring bolts off it. So this is going to require a T30 to crack these bolts off. Now I'm going to give the chain rings a quick clean, and then we'll get them on the Magene. Now I've cleaned off them rings, let's get them on the Magene. And you can see it lines up perfectly with Dura Ace rings. And lining it up, I'm going to use the Dura Ace bolts as they definitely fit. You can just see just how easy it is to set this up when you've got your own Shimano chain set. You're taking some rings off. And there you go, Dura Ace rings on my Magene PES 515. And another thing that makes this super easy to install on a bike that's come stock with a Shimano chain set is the fact it uses a standard 24mm axle. If you compare that to my Dura Ace one, very similar axle, so it should be super easy to get it on the bike. So yeah, exactly what we're going to do now. Let's get it into the BB, in the BB there, take the non-drive side, and let's get it on. Now, one thing I like that Magene have done that Shimano don't do is they've got hex bits on the preload bolt, unlike Shimano where you need to use a special tool, get it nicely lined up. You can use a 6mm as well instead of the 8, which is also super useful for out in the field, you might not have an 8mm with you, but if you're running through axles, you'll definitely have made sure to bring a 6mm with you, which is perfect. Get that tightened down nicely. Now, it might be that this chain line is ever so slightly different than my old Dura Ace. And there we go. PES 515 on the bike. And yeah, I have to say, I love just how simple installing it on a bike that's come with a stock Shimano crankset is. And yes, it's not the lightest thing in the world, but these Shimano cranks aren't light either, so you won't be getting that much of a weight penalty. I think this would be absolutely perfect if you've got a bike that say came with a 105 chain set. And here's a real big bit, it's keeping the Shimano chain rings massively improves shifting performance. You know, going to these third-party cranks, you can often lose quite a lot of shifting performance. I mean, I'm running ERX, not Shimano at the minute, but when you're running Shimano, you do really want to try and stick with the Shimano chain rings, as the cranks don't matter that much, but the chain rings need to be Shimano. All of this is not going to matter if the power meter data isn't spot on. So the next part of the video, I'm going to be taking this on the turbo, compare it to both my Favero Assioma pedals and my two different turbos data to check it all lines up. Now, the most exciting thing about this power meter is its crazy aggressive price point. Including a set of cranks, it comes in at just $299, including shipping, which I think is absolutely incredible. Considering the first power meter I bought only about 5 years ago now was second-hand on a dodgy old Specialized BB30 chain set. I think I paid over £300 for that back then. The fact that you can get a brand new spider-based power meter with crank set for just $300 or £300 is absolutely incredible, considering it's not that long ago that you were talking the best part of £1,000 to get a power meter on your bike. So if this lives up to its expectations and actually can provide some reliable training metrics, it is a complete game changer. To give you a bit of context about other power meters I've used in the past, aside from several different direct drive turbos, I've been predominantly recently running Favero Assioma duo pedals. I've also got a dual-sided Stages R8100 power meter, regarded to be pretty much one of the only decent native Shimano crank installed power meters. I've also got a Quark D0 on my gravel bike, which whilst pretty reliable, I do think overreads a little bit. And I have also been trying a couple of other brands' new power meters, which you'll be finding out about over the next few weeks. So whilst $299 is an incredible price, if its data's garbage, well then that's a complete waste of $300. So unfortunately, this is where I'm gonna have to temper your expectations a bit. As you may notice, we are now unfortunately quite a long way, 4 months to be exact, in the future from when I started filming this review. And I've only just reached the point where I'm comfortable finishing and releasing this video. And the reason for it, well, initially at least, the numbers, yeah, they just didn't quite line up. From day one, the Magene was consistently reading a good few watts higher than my reference pedals, my Favero Assiomas. Not random spikes, not dropouts, just consistently higher. These two power meters are bolted to the exact same part of the bike, so there should be no drivetrain loss excuses or anything else to contend with here. So what's going on? I don't own my own lab grade testing equipment. I've got a Quark which reads a few watts higher than my Faveros. I've got my Direto Turbo that reads a few watts lower, but crucially here, we're always just talking about 1 or 2% or less. Whereas the problem I was experiencing with the Magene was quite significantly more than that. Pretty much every data set I compared with this Magene had it reading between 4 and 5% over the Faveros. For example, this steady state ride here has it reading around 4.4% higher than my Faveros. But it wasn't just in the steady state sessions this was happening. Here in this sweet spot over under session, well, you can see that the same problem occurs, and here it's a lot more visible as well. But where it gets interesting is when you look a little bit closer at that line, you can see it pretty much perfectly tracks the Faveros, but it's just been shifted up by a few percent. And this is what leads us into the discussion of accuracy and precision. Accuracy is how well the data reflects the true real world values, whereas on the other hand, precision is how repeatable and internally consistent that data is. As in, every time I do 5 minutes at 300 watts, does it record the same 5 minutes at 300 watts? And I had a suspicion that the problem the Magene had was more of an accuracy one rather than a precision one. Fortunately, in their app, you can apply a constant offset to your power meter. So that's what I did, applied an offset to reduce its power readings by around 4%. But I wasn't ready to trust it just yet. And this is honestly why this review has taken me so long to complete. I have spent hundreds of hours
albeit mostly on the turbo, smashing through training sessions all winter. So I had a huge rigorous data set to convince myself whether or not this machine was actually usable. And whilst I can't show you a huge suite of hundreds of hours of training data, otherwise this video will be hours long, here's a small snapshot of pretty much the summary of what I was seeing. Firstly, we'll take a zone 2 sort of steady state erg mode ride. And as you can see, all three power meters here with the Magene and the Faveros within 0.5% of each other. And the biggest gap, the Magene to the Direto, was only 1.3%. Now you would always expect a direct drive turbo to underread versus crank-based power meters as they measure downstream of any drivetrain efficiency losses. Some turbos account for this, but I find the Direto is very conservative when it comes to this. But you can't just test a power meter with pure zone 2 rides alone. And whilst I've not got much data for this, as most of my training has been sort of zone 2 style, I do have some small amounts of data of the more intense rides. For example, when I did my all-out effort up the grade. Unfortunately, I've lost the Favero file from this, but you can see here yet again, the Magene and the Direto are perfectly tracking each other with, interestingly, that exact same 1.3% offset, with the Magene reading ever so slightly higher. Both of these efforts were done with me using a Zwift cog set to the exact same position in the same chainring at the front with a nice clean chain, so you would expect there to not be that much variance in drivetrain losses. And yeah, as I said, this trend was pretty much spot on consistent across the rest of my hundreds of hours of winter training. After all that, I have to say I have been super impressed. And as a real training tool, not just something to generate bragging right FTP numbers from, at the end of the day, precision is what matters. You need a power meter to be repeatable and to be able to measure differences in your performance. But I guess there is still one slight uncomfortable question that I still don't have the answer to. Why is it that me and pretty much everyone else in the industry pretty much trust the numbers that come out of the Faveros as gospel? The honest answer is, online across loads of different review platforms, written and video based, most people find the Assiomas to reflect pretty well against other well-calibrated meters. And when using real-world benchmarks such as race results compared to sort of power simulations I've got from Best Bike Split, the numbers I get from my Faveros line up far closer with what the simulation tells me. And if I'm choosing between slightly conservative or slightly inflated numbers, I'm taking the conservative ones any day. I'd much rather be pleasantly surprised on race day rather than disappointed. And after these months of using the Magene, Favero and Direto side by side, I'm finally reached the point where I'm happy to run just the Magene and trust its numbers for my own training purposes. So to nicely condense all of that information into some quick and easy pros and cons about the power meter then. The pros are it is super affordable. You could pretty much buy two for the same price as a set of Assiomas. It has excellent repeatability, so it's clearly very precise. The fact it's natively compatible with a 24mm axle and 4-bolt Shimano spacing spider makes it super easy to install. And finally, it uses a rechargeable battery, which, coming from using that Quark for years with a CR2032, is a super nice thing to have. And then on the flip side, the cons are, yeah, firstly, it's not a lightweight piece of kit. It definitely carries a bit of a weight penalty, but there is the TEO version if weight matters to you. As I've just mentioned, it may require some tuning and calibration to get it to line up with other power meters. And since starting to shoot this video at $299 or pounds, it is now no longer the cheapest power meter available on the market. The floodgates really have opened for Chinese power meters in the last few months, and there are some extremely cheap options now available. And yes, I have got that mind-blowingly cheap ThinkRider power meter on its way to test out on the channel. So to conclude then, to loop back on the title of the video, I claimed it's the best value cycling product, but there's one catch. Well, first up, what's the catch? Well, despite seeming to be pretty precise, you are gonna have to perform a bit of a calibration to get it accurate. Now, for some people, they expect a product to come out the box, ready to use, and just run with it. And if you are one of them people, just go and buy some Assiomas. I wouldn't recommend this power meter for you. But if you're wanting a bargain and you already own power meters on other bikes or turbo trainers and you're happy to put a bit more work in, it can be a really good bargain. Accuracy is generally fixable, but precision, well, usually not. If the power meter is inconsistent or drifting all the time, and it's basically just a fancy random number generator, Shimano, well, it just cannot be reliably used for training purposes. So is this the best deal in cycling? Well, I think the argument for that has started to get watered down a little bit in recent times with, as I said, the flood of cheap Chinese power meters cropping up on the market and the fact that it is going to take some work to get it accurate. But all in all, I do think it is a fair contender for that title. So I hope you've really enjoyed this video, and if you want more of the same, please do consider subscribing to the channel below. As I said, I do have that mind-blowingly cheap ThinkRider power meter on its way, along with plenty of other cheap Chinese cycling products queued up for testing on the channel. And if you want to support my work further, consider joining channel membership, where I give you early access to loads of videos, and every month you get to vote on what AliExpress product you'd like me to check out next. But I've got a training session to get on with now, so I better stop rambling, and I'll see you all in the next one.